Hello and welcome to the second episode of Spilling the Green Beans, where I share with you my green secrets to inspire you to start growing your own vegetables. In this episode, I share with you the first 3 steps to plan your garden on your balcony or terrace. I'm your host, Emily, creator of Easy Urban Gardening, the system for growing your own vegetables on a balcony or terrace in time. Thank you for spending time with me today. Growing vegetables can seem daunting and hard work, but I share with you the most crucial techniques to make it fun and easy. You'll also learn how to take advantage of the broad health benefits of gardening and how to cook delicious meals with your own vegetables. In short, I'll share all my green secrets. I will be spilling the green beans. In this episode, I share with you the first 3 steps when planning your easy urban garden on your balcony or terrace. It's plan, build, and mix. So first, you have to plan. Why? Well, first of all, because easy urban gardening is, yes, I know, all about easy, but above all about diversity and reduction of waste. So we want as many as possible different veggies in our garden, and nothing should be wasted. No land, water, nor seeds, but certainly no perfectly good vegetables just because you have too much of them to eat. So we focus on using the smallest space or land possible, fewest water, fewest seeds, and on producing only what we know that we can, will, and like to eat. So how do you do that? By knowing your plant sizes and sowing accordingly. We work with 4 sizes: small, medium, large, and extra large, which means in one easy urban gardening square can hold either 16, 9, 4, or 1 plant, depending on the size. So if you know you like carrots, you first need to realize that 1 square can hold 16 carrots that in the end will all be ready around the same time. Of course, you can harvest them over a couple of days or maybe even over a week or 2, but still you have to eat 16 carrots in a relatively short time. Depending on your family size, 1 square might then do. And in that case, it's against the easy urban gardening rules to sow multiple squares of carrot at the same time because you might not eat them. As I say, it's at the same time because you can perfectly sow a 2nd square of carrots later in the season, or maybe even a 3rd one, but you start with just 1. That means that planning an easy urban garden is actually a repetition of asking yourself the following questions. Which vegetables do I like and will I eat? How many of them fit in 1 square? And how much of them can and will I eat during the season and at a certain time in the season? Based on those answers, you calculate how many squares you'd like or maybe even need to have. So to give you a more tangible example, let's briefly discuss one of my gardens to give you an idea how much you can produce on a little space. Mine is 120 by 60 centimeters, so it has 8 squares. I love carrots, spinach, lettuce, tomatoes, peas, French beans, beetroots, chard, palm tree kale, radishes, pak choi, spring onion, and zucchini. I know I like a lot more vegetables than that, but we stick with these first now. So those vegetables fit in our squares as follows. You can fit in 16 carrots, 9 spinach plants, 4 to 9 lettuces, 1 tomato, 8 peas, 9 beans, 9 beetroots, 4 chard, 1 palm tree kale, 16 radishes, 4 to 9 pak choy, 16 spring onions, and then I need 2 squares for 1 zucchini. It's kind of like an oversized extra large vegetable, a zucchini. So the next question is, how much can I eat of those at the time they are ready? So of course, a tomato, but also the peas, the beans, and the zucchini, they will produce fruits over a longer period of time. And radishes, carrots, and beetroots, of course, are harvested at once. And you can't harvest half a carrot. But spinach, lettuce, chard, and palm tree kale, you can decide. Either you harvest them once once they're full size, or you can pick single leaves of them over a long period of time. So this means that some vegetables give me a gradual harvest, like a longer period, while others produce a peak harvest in a small period of time. Especially the peak harvest ones are prone to food waste if you grow too many of them, but they also represent the type of vegetables that allow you to plant the square multiple times during the season. So let's get back to my garden of 8 squares. In a typical growing season, I would start in spring with 1 patch of carrots, 1 with spinach, 1 with chard, 1 with a palm tree kale, 1 with snow peas, 1 radishes, 1 pak choy, and 1 lettuce. Now, radish and pak choy grow really quickly. You can harvest them in 4 to 6 weeks. So they're the first ones to be, those patches are the first ones to be replanted roughly mid-spring with, say, another type of lettuce and carrots. Then later in spring or early summer, I can then plant my tomato and zucchini in one of the patches that I harvested empty, maybe the spinach one and the chard one. But those plants will be in there until late autumn. As I said, they will produce fruits normally until the end of September, maybe even early October, depending on the weather. In late spring, I also sow my beans and probably a first round of beetroot, plus yet another type of lettuce. And then in late summer or early autumn, another round of the so-called cold veggies. They are spinach, chard, palm tree kale, radishes, pak choy, and another round of carrots and beetroots. So then just before winter sets in, I sow a new patch of peas and winter lettuce for early spring harvest. I do like really early spring. I always count within the growing season because I grow year round, and everything that goes in there until, like, say, early December of year 1 is, even though it's harvested in year 2, I count it with my year 1 gardening season. So you see how one tiny garden of 120 by 60 centimeters or 8 square feet can give you a lot of produce. During the season, pay attention. During the season, I will harvest roughly the following. Out of that one garden, 1 kilo of French beans, 1 kilo of snow peas, 18 tomatoes, big ones, or the whole vine with cherry tomatoes, also roughly 18, 12 to 16 zucchini, 32 carrots, 32 radishes, 1 kilogram of spinach, 18 beetroots, a kilogram of chard, 13 pak choy, 1 to 2 kilogram of lettuce. That, of course, the weight of lettuce is a little bit depending on whether you grow lettuce heads or you grow leaf lettuce, which you pick over a long period of time, and a kilogram of kale and 16 spring onions. Yes, all that from just one little urban garden. So be careful, make sure you start small and gradually expand. With experience comes also knowledge about which vegetables produce how much in your garden. So the second step in the planning process is to decide the location and shape of your garden on your balcony or terrace. But make sure you choose the most sunny spot available with at least 6 hours of direct summer sunshine. As for the shape, well, that's up to you. You can do square, you can do a rectangular, you can go around the corner. You can even stack single squares up vertically. Like I have an iron garden rack, and I stacked 7 singular planty bags of a 30 by 30 centimeters on it. So I have kind of like a vertical garden of 7 patches. Well, now you plant your garden, it's time for step 2, and that is building it. So ideally, you should make your garden of untreated wood. And of course, it has to be divided in 30 by 30 centimeter squares, because that in the end is one of the main characteristics of an easy urban garden. So think about sizes like 30 by 90, or 60 by 60, or 120 by 30, or maybe 90 by 90, 120 by 60. So, or as I said, singular bags or boxes can be stacked vertically. Just remember that for an adult person, if you are standing on one side of your garden, it is really easy to reach up to 60 centimeters. 90 centimeters already kind of like becomes uncomfortable. And if you would go for a square of 120 by 120 centimeters, you can't reach the middle patches from one. You can't reach all the patches just from one side. So as long as you go wider, as in the depth, like forwards, when you reach with your arms, when that distance is more than 60 centimeters, make sure you can reach from multiple sides, or maybe even you need to be able to reach from 4 sides into your garden. Just something to think about. 60 centimeters is easy doable. Everything more than that makes gardening already a little bit less easy and less comfortable. And remember, your easy urban garden only needs to be 20 centimeters deep. Don't have anybody tell you that it needs to be 50 or 70 or undeep or shallow at one side and really deep on the other side, because you otherwise would not be able to grow carrots or potatoes. It's not true. 20 centimeter really does the job. And I grow potatoes and carrots, and so it's all no problem. But as we garden on balconies or terraces, we have to raise our beds on legs just because of drainage problems you would otherwise get. And ideally, your legs would be between 75 and 95 centimeters high, depending on how tall you are and what works comfortable for you. As an example, my ideal gardens, I have them on multiple heights to experiment, but my ideal garden is 90 centimeters, which is roughly just between a dining table and a kitchen countertop height. So a dining table height would probably be more in the area of 75. A kitchen counter height would be roughly 90, maybe 95 centimeters, depending. So just try it out, go and work as if you are gardening next to your dining table or in your kitchen or your desk or whatever, and figure out whether that height is comfortable or that it should be just a little bit higher or just a little bit lower, and make sure you make the legs as it is comfortable for you. Well, as we work in raised beds, of course, they need a bottom. But it's important that you make enough holes or grooves to enable good drainage. And to prevent then the soil from flowing away through the holes or grooves, we cover the bottom with landscape fabric, also called anti-roots cloth or roots barrier fabric, whatever. It is this kind like really fine maced fabric, most of the time it's black, and you can put it in your garden. And then on top of that, we will put the soil. And then last but definitely not least, you do need a grid. Without a grid, it's not an easy urban garden. And without a grid, you can't work in nice, clear and neat squares. It's absolutely essential to create your garden efficient and as productive as it can be. But it's absolutely unimportant what material you use for the grid. I, after quite some trial and error, chose for a grid made of white plastic slats, roughly a little bit more than a centimeter wide. And yes, I know it's plastic, and I always say my gardens are 100% plastic free, but of course these don't degrade, so it's not in my soil, it won't end up in the water or in my plants or in the animals or in myself. It's I chose for it because they last forever, they're very easy to clean, and even in a super full garden they're very visible. I just like the neat appearance it gives my garden, but that choice is up to you. You can use wood or bamboo or whatever you like. And I just want to repeat my advice once, that please do start small. You can always add gardens later in the season or next year. And I want to emphasize again, it can be done later in the season, because the way we use the patches multiple times through the year, there is absolutely no reason why, if you start now in February or March with one garden and you decide, oh, I love it so much, I want another one, that you have to wait until next year, March or February. No, you can just in May or in August or even in October, you can add an extra garden or your next garden to grow vegetables. And even with the October one, if you place it strategically near the wall of your house, a spot where even in winter the sun is always, you might even be able to grow some winter lettuce or some kale or things, real winter vegetables in that one, even though you only started in October. So then, no, you're not really ready yet. It's not necessary, but if you plan on growing any vegetables like tomato, cucumber, zucchini, peas, runner beans, or pumpkin, you make your life a lot easier if you make a trellis construction on one side of your garden. And it's probably best to attach it to the north-facing side of the garden, so that it doesn't throw all the shadow on your garden with the lower growing plants in front of it, and then the sun at the back, and then you have all your vegetables in the shade, which is not ideal. Although I immediately have to confess, my south-facing rooftop terrace is in summer so hot that I actually moved my trellis to the south side of my garden, as to purposely create summer shade in my garden. And it is only in summer because I use the trellis really for the summer vegetables. So in spring, they are almost completely empty, but for some snow peas. And so then you don't have the problem of the shade. And in summer, I actually want the shade. But that is something to figure out on your terrace or your balcony, because it's very location and situation specific. So now you decided how big your garden has to be, where it has to stand, and out of which materials you will build it. So then the third and last step, which is well, it's kind of like the go or no go for a successful garden, and that is mixing. Because you are going to mix your own soil or growing medium cold. So it's time to get your hands dirty. And because when you want a really super successful and productive easy urban garden, you really gonna need to make this growing medium. What do you need? You need 3 components in equal quantities. It's a high quality organic compost. Originally, it is peat moss, but I do know that that has some environmental problems to it. And I also know that especially in Europe, or as maybe you're living in Switzerland like me, it's absolutely impossible to buy peat moss. So you need a high quality organic replacement for it. And for that, you can use things like cocoa peat. Sometimes it's called coconut coir. Or if you live in Switzerland, like me, you can buy very good organic peat replacement at the Migo Garden Center. In the German part of Switzerland, it's called Torfersatz. But it's like that's the literally translated from peat replacement. So those are the options that you have. And then the third and final component you need is vermiculite. No, vermiculite is not a scary thing. It's a completely natural mineral that is just heat treated to make it pop. And you can think about it like popcorn. And it's a brilliant water retainer and manager, as it can absorb a huge amount of water in a little time, and it will only slowly release it afterwards. So it's brilliant. Without it, it's hard to have an easy urban garden, or actually it is hard to have a vegetable garden on a sunny terrace with only 20 centimeters of soil. And it is also it's also one of the components that makes it very easy to use as little water as possible. So with the vermiculite, it's important that you use the so-called coarse vermiculite with granulates of 3 to 6 millimeter for your mix. And you probably have to go and look on the internet to buy it, although in some countries, pet shops or do it yourself DIY stores might sell it. So you have to go and look for it a little bit. Don't be tempted to have somebody in the garden center tell you, oh, that doesn't exist. We have the fine one, which is actually only for sowing or actually pre-sowing. Don't have them sell you that. First of all, it is way more expensive. And second of all, it doesn't really do the job in your mixture. You're gonna need it later if you want to sow your summer vegetables, but not in your mixture. It's really, really better to have the coarse version. So then what is left? Well, only one thing left, and that is how we have to calculate how much of your growing medium or soil mixture you need to make. And for that, there is like a little math formula. It's not too complicated, but you have to do some calculation. And it is, you do take the width, just in centimeters, the width of your garden times the height times the depth, and you divide that by 1,000. So if we go back to my example of a garden of 120 by 60 centimeters, that would be 120 times 60 times 20, which gives us 144,000 divided by 1,000. Tells you you need 144 liters of soil mixture for that one garden. And as you need all 3 components in equal quantities, you need 48 liters each. Now, probably you won't be able to buy, first of all, you won't be able to buy 48 liter bags. But second of all, you probably won't even be able to buy all 3 components in similar sized bags. So to measure the quantities, what I do, and which is just really easy, I take a big 10-liter bucket and I fill it. So I fill it like 5 times with compost, 5 times with the peat replacement or fiber mixture, and 5 times with vermiculite. I throw everything on a big plastic that I have like spread on my terrace. I throw it all on a big plastic sheet and I mix it and mix it. You know, I'm going to be dirty probably until here, but that's fine. It's very healthy to play in, in the earth. So you mix it like that. Just make sure you mix it really, really well. And then it goes into your garden. Another option, which you can do, but you might spill a little bit more, is throw all components, you know, like empty the buckets directly into your garden and then mix it in there. So that's all there is to start. And now you are ready to go and realize your very own easy urban garden and have an amazing growing season this year. I can't wait for it to start. I can't wait to hear from you, to see your successes, to enjoy the amazing feeling that will come up. I promise you that will come up once you see your very first seedlings, and then again when they grow, and then again when you go and harvest and taste them. So it's going to be amazing. And for now, I want to thank you for spending time with me in my garden. And it is really, it feels for me like that, even though I'm still sitting inside, as it is snowing outside here now at the moment. But I promise you that later in the season, I will do these videos in my garden, literally outside in my garden. So I want to thank you for spending time with me in the garden. And if you enjoyed this episode of Spilling the Green Beans, then please share, subscribe, and give a YouTube review so more people can enjoy the show. And I see you in the next episode.